don't think there's anything else much to tell you. Just to say welcome to this session by Anthony Garton of Poppy's Woodtech, and I'll hand over to Anthony to introduce his topics and conversation, and we'll take it from here.
Thank you, Richard. Hello, everybody. So this afternoon, we're going to just carry on a little bit with our topics we did this morning. Might be a little bit of duplication, but just if we've got a different audience, it's not for them. So we're going to talk about new kits. I want to talk a little bit about Locobox and suspension and compensation in the chassis. And then if we run out of topics to talk about, I've got a little bit of assembly to do on some things to go onto the diorama as well. So we can sort of kick off from there. Okay, so thinking about people that have maybe not been to shows and seen things, maybe not seen anything since last virtual show. Been trying to think of what products we've brought out, and one of the things we've introduced is a Wagon turntable, which is there. 9 pieces in the kit, makes one turntable. You can see a sort of prototype at the side there. We produced this originally because of a customer request, where a lot of our things come from, and been surprisingly popular, and surprisingly customers are ordering multiples. So I'm looking forward to seeing those layouts when they materialize. They should be interesting things to do. I think we've only seen Wagon turntables sort of made out of homemade ones, made out of sticks or whatever else in the past. So yeah, maybe a bit of inspiration for somebody to build a warehouse layout or a dockside layout to incorporate some of these. And of course we're just selling that wooden decking piece, but of course you could easily motorize it. Would mean making a little turntable. I'm not sure if anybody makes a kit for it. I think maybe Metal's used to, not sure. Yeah, so that's one of the new products. The other thing that is new, customer asked us to do it at Stafford, is we've got a ballast brake van, which is this one. This is a photograph the customer gave us at Stafford. So it's a 2-compartment brake van, one compartment for the guard and another compartment for a traveling crew, departmental crew, going from one location to another. Yeah, so that's one photograph of it, and customer gave us another photograph there. So that's what we had to start with. Okay. Now I've looked in books for sort of reference details for how to make it, how to put it together, what the kit should look like, and it is in 2 or 3 books, but I haven't found. Customer also supplied us with a drawing, which has got some details on it and some measurements, but not everything. And it's obviously come out of a book because you've got that sort of reference on the bottom there. But I haven't, although I found it in 3 books, this particular diagram, I haven't found that drawing. So I don't know where it came from, but it's obviously published somewhere. And this is the kit. Okay, so that's the sort of wooden body and what it looks like. I'm just going to switch cameras and I'll show you the detail of the interior, which comes in the kit as well. Now then, not that one, lovely. Okay, so if I just take the roof off the van, you can see there's benches that go all the way around, tables in the center for the work crew, and then duckets and a bench there for the guard. On the center division, I've drawn it, and we provide the kit like there's a interconnecting door, which you can see there. Now the drawing says it's a hatch, and one of the photos shows, if you can see there, through the door, through the open doorway, there's obviously a bench that's blocking off the door, and maybe some of them were converted into being a hatch or something like that for some sort of communication between the two. But I think because it had such a long life, these were originally built by LNER in 1948. I think they started coming out, and they lived in departmental service for 40 odd years. There were obviously a lot of modifications done and many different variations. So, you know, there's a basic kit. I've tried to make it as built, and then it can be modified in, you know, whatever way is suitable for modeling. Now, is that going to? There we go. Right. So we've got some benches in there and tables and things like that. That's all included in the kit, and the guards arrangements as well. And I've sort of done it like showing you the interior first, because when I start moving it around, they're not fixed because I want to paint it and finish it off nicely. And in the kit you get the roof panel, and you would get a jig for putting the roof panel together, and there's also a template for doing the handrails, which are not on this one yet, but that will all be included in the kit. What I've also done is I've drawn some, and you can see that the ones that are here are made of wood. I've drawn some duckets for the guards compartment. Now, what will be included in the kit is some duckets like this, which are made of plywood. Okay, that's the sort of material that we deal in. But the original ones, of course, would have been steel, so you might not want a sort of a woody type finish on those. I had a look around and seen what else was available, and the Slater's ones for LNER are too shallow, and the LMS ones are too narrow for the slot that's that fits this van. So those are sort of out of the window. But what I actually did was I used one of the ones that I'm going to provide in the kit as a template to cut out some nickel silver ones, which make up quite nicely, and they've obviously got that sort of metallic texture to them. And I also use it to make some plastic hard ones, just to sort of prove that, you know, there are different alternatives. If you don't fancy the chances of getting a wood grain on your steel ducket, so you can do it. Customer asked us, and my intention is to just provide you the wooden parts in the kit, but I just wanted to see how easy it was to put a chassis together out of the spares box, and I was surprised how easy it was, how well it came together. So what I've got here is I've got some coach torpedo vents, LNER coach torpedo vents, which appear to be the same as in the photographs. And I've got a chassis here that I've sort of put together. There goes the furniture. Just out of bits and pieces I found in the spares box. So there we go. I've got a couple of W iron arrangements there, which are Slaters. One's a rocking one, which I thought was a good idea for a long wheelbase. And we've got some other bits and pieces, brake gear and axle boxes and things that came out of the spares box. And I've made up a chassis with the footboards and the brackets and things in much the same way. This is predominantly 6x2 channel, 6mm by 2mm channel, and 5mm by 2mm for the step board piece of angle. And then I've just used offcuts of nickel silver for the strapping and the brass on the corners, and that's really what's keeping the body in place. I think I need, for the permanent solution, I need to make some brackets and just solder something on here that I can screw onto the body floor. But really that sort of came out the scrap box, spares box, whatever you want to call it. Just thought I'd see how easy it was to do, because what customers have asked us in the past is, when we've done the coaches, when are you doing a chassis kit? And of course we could do a chassis kit for this, but I've got a feeling that by the time we put a chassis kit together and put some on the ground and costed it for sale, you could probably make a chassis a lot cheaper. So that's the chassis we've put together on there. And the kit itself is cut. I'm going to say cut because that's the word that I use, but there's a double wall thickness, so it's cut inside and it's cut outside. You've got inside detail all the way around. You've got window openings and the lights that look same as the photographs. And because it's laminated and the floor is laminated as well, you've got a reasonable thickness there for screwing, in this case, screwing the W iron sets into as well. So that's a nice little kit that's going to be out in the next few days on the website. We'll put it on the website and it's there for people to see and to look at. Has anybody got any questions about these?
Just what are you retailing your kit at?
So because there's a lot of detail in it, Richard, because there's furniture inside and stuff like that as well, it'll be 45.
Fine. Yeah. Well, you can't do it at a loss, so.
Well, I think when I was talking to the customer originally, I thought, oh yeah, okay, box. Well, that'd be the same price as the horse box, which is $39.50, I think. But there is a little bit more detail in here, a little bit more cutting. You got the furniture as well. You've got some templates and things provided with the kit.
Yeah.
So I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Are those white metal vents?
These are white metal vents in there, yeah.
Yeah.
I found I had a set in the spares box of LNER torpedo vents for coaches.
Right.
So they look exactly the same as the ones on the photograph. So
Yeah.
And if all goes well, so this was this one that you're looking at here. I made as proof of concept. So draw it up as you think it should be drawn. How it looked on the photographs, things like that. And as I've taken it forward and done the chassis and done the roof and so on and so forth, I've made some adjustments to the drawing. So the production models will gain from the experience of having put this together and completed it. So it's as accurate as it can be.
Which is one of the essential things, isn't it, of
Well,
any
yeah.
kit manufacturer, that he puts it together before he flogs it to make sure it goes together.
I like to think so. I like to think so. I mean, that's the principle we work on. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
don't know whether anybody else wants to put a question in onto chat. There's nothing so far. Sorry, keep going, mate.
That's all right. I'll start reassembling this then. See if I think of anything else. So this I say it started off as a LNER diagram, 203 in 1948. It says in the books you find. But it was also, you know, it's gone into the tops period of British Railways because it was also ZTO and ZPO, whatever that means. I'm not a tops man, unfortunately. But also, you know, if you've got different trains of different eras and that sort of thing, it could easily fit in just about everywhere. On the Paul Bartlett website for wagon photos and things like that, I use that quite a bit for references. You know, there are photographs of one of these in like a grey LNER livery, in bauxite, in like an engineer's green, like the customer's photo, with light green doors and with yellow warning panels as well. All those sorts of different liveries. So it's not sort of like it's not constrained by being a sort of a one vehicle in one era. You know, it's going to have a fairly wide operational life. So hopefully it'll have a little bit of a life as a kit.
Well, I'm sure it will.
There we go. Put all the bits and pieces in. Yeah. And the roof is the roof's put together in the usual way we do for the coaches and things like that. So you've got a frame inside the roof, and you get your template for making the frame, and then you glue the frame together, glue the template together, and then sandwich the roof panel between, and put some weights on it. Yeah. So it's when the glue dries, it's curved. On this particular model, but it doesn't have to be, you know, you can build it both ways. On this particular model, I've got the planking on the outside. I fancy that when I finish it, I'm going to put some tissue on top. You might still see some plank lines through it a little bit, which I think for a lightly maintained departmental vehicle is probably about right. Yeah, but you could equally put the plank lines on the inside if that's something you want to do. And because, you know, we supply the template as well, because even though we've cut through this piece of plywood part of the way to make it easier to bend, because of the nature and the quality of the material, it's still got a lot of energy. It still wants to be flat. Yeah. I'm just looking for the markings that say which end goes where. So there you go. And of course the frame goes that way because you've got steps for the guard to get in, and this guy. And I did sort of wonder about, well, the step boards are offset to the doors. I wonder why, but they all seem to be the same. So I can only imagine that the board hangers were set out at convenient places, and the board just went between the two that fitted, you know. So that's that one. If nobody's got any questions about that one, we'll just sort of move on, but it's there to come back to if you want to. That in there. One of the we were talking in this morning session about jigs and things, and you know, a lot of kits that we do either come from customers' requests or things that I need for me as a modeler. That's where we started out originally, you know, especially with loco box and things like that. And one thing that I made up to help me put the axle spacing right for this kit is a little jig for doing spacing on wagons. Yeah, so I just wanted to be able to put this axle spacing accurately at 16 feet. So I thought, well, I'll just knock up a jig. And I put some extra slots in there for me to make it useful for doing wagons of different sorts. And wouldn't you know it, the next one I came to look at last night, I thought, right, okay, well, that could come out. And that's a 15-foot wheelbase, which is just there. So not enough slots. There you go. But that's what I say, it's just another little template, another little jig that I've come up with as a consequence of me needing one for my modeling. So other people might need it. Talking about jigs for modeling, another thing we've got on the agenda today is the loco box. When we had a previous session, previous video session with Nick Dunhill, we had a conversation about why the box, our box, was suitable for compensation and suspension on locos as well. If you're doing a rigid chassis, well, the logic is very simple to see. You know, you've got 3 axles that are in a line, and that's what you make. But customers regularly ask about suspension and compensation, so I thought to try and answer those and to give you some sort of tangible evidence why it's suitable. Nick said something last time about all you need to make sure is that the chassis sits level, and what you can see on here is that because the top of the chassis is in line with the top of the box, that's what you're aiming for. Yeah, so your axles are level, the top of the chassis is level, your loco is going to be level. And what I've done this week is for the purposes of today's session is I've made this chassis up with some beams in. You can see the beams there and some horn blocks that are going to allow these 2 axles to go up and down. But equally, you can build it in the box and it sits flat. So if anybody wants to ask any questions about that more technically or anything like that, you can do. Quite happy to do that. And what I threatened to do this morning was to take it out of the loco box for the first time and see if we can put some wheels on and see what happens. So I think that's what I'll do next. Has anybody got any questions? Does anybody use one of these? Anybody have found one helpful? Think they might find one helpful? I don't know if that's an old one or a new one, Richard. We've got a chat in there somewhere.
That was just me asking if anyone.
Oh, Chris, right. Okay, got it. Yeah. Okay. Move on. Okay. So I'm just going to try and put some wheels on here. Now I'm just going to try and keep the things, all the bits and pieces as they come off, try and keep them in the right place, because this chassis has a unequal wheelbase. So we don't want to trip over that. And what I've done is I made the coupling rods up first, and made sure that they were a matching pair. So absolutely, definitely were made together as a pair, and then used those and the loco box to hold the chassis in place and move the bearings around and the horn blocks around on the beams so that everything was aligned. And then when it was aligned, I've soldered in all the bearings and the other arrangements to match. So the only piece that's on here, hope it doesn't fall out, is the beam that goes across the chassis, because I haven't soldered it in. Now I haven't soldered it in because there's also a I don't know what the right word is, a spacer that goes vertically to put the inside valve gear on. So because I want to put that around the beams, I haven't soldered that pivot bar in, so it's interference fit, so it should stay in place. So let's have a look. We should do the easy one first, really, shouldn't I? Let's have a look. Don't be afraid to ask questions if you want to. Now, what is it? This is the left, it's the right hand side's quarter of a turn in front of the right hand left hand side. Is that right? You guys don't mind. I'm just gonna. Oh, I ain't got my glasses on. Oh, that's why. I meant to say change my glasses. Right. Okay. That's all right. So that should go in there. That should go in there. Oh, this looks promising. So let's make sure we get it the same. I'm assuming this is interesting for everybody in the audience, and you all build locomotives. Is that right?
Yeah.
This is too easy, isn't it?
Those Slater's wheels.
They are Slater's wheels. They are Slater's wheels, Richard. Now, what I've done, which I was handed on to me by Jim Harris of Hopeville and Acorn or whatever else, a few years ago, but I know many people do it. I haven't used the 12mm bolt that comes with the Slater's wheels. What I've done is I have drilled and tapped out the wheels to be a 10BA. Well, that's a good start. And turned around the, what is it? What is in focus? I can't.
The bush that Slater's supply.
The bush that Slater's supply. Yeah, drilled
Yeah.
and tapped that, and then
Yeah.
turned it round.
Yeah.
Which I know you've got to be careful about what the prototype looked like. Managed to turn around the chassis, but the prototype of this one does look like it's just round bushes on the end. So
yeah.
Now, which way is the inside and which way is the outside? That way is there. Oh, okay.
Side if it's fluted on the outside.
Sorry, Richard.
Fluted on the outside if it's fluted. Unless it's fluted on both sides.
Sorry, I missed it.
fluted on the outer edge, out on the outward facing side, if it's fluted on one side.
Oh no, it's fluted on neither. If they look a bit ragged, is it because I haven't cleaned them up? So the two laminations, because there's a
Yeah.
there's a rivet in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's two laminations, but I just haven't cleaned them up, so they might look a bit rough.
I had a WD that I got from Pete Waterman when it was just like the real thing, and because of the tightness of the space for all the valve gear and the rods, I finished up using that method so there wasn't a bush, then the rod sitting on the bush, and then a nut on the end. The bush became the nut.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Now that one goes on. It's really nerve-wracking doing this live, I'm telling you. Now that's curious, isn't it? Why is that then? I'm going to put a reamer on that in a minute. Right. Might be best to try it first in these, might it? Don't know. Right. Do. And we'll try and change the focus on the camera in a minute to be closer, because it's it's on the area where I'm working, but if I want to show you some detail, it's not close enough, is it? Yeah, just this one that's a bit of a. I wonder why that one's done that. Right. Right. I have a suspicion this bush is bigger than the others. Right. And I haven't got it in. Let me get it out. Right. Yeah, we had that conversation this morning about carpet monsters. That's the last thing we need today, isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah. Right, lovely. Nice fit. There we go. Good. All right. So, oh, beautiful. There you go. Loco box works.
yeah.
Does the suspension work? Yeah. So we've got a, where is it gone? Right. Okay. So we've got a rocking chassis. Doesn't move that much, but it moves enough to accommodate uneven track. Also means that all the wheels are touching the ground at the same time, so on and so forth. Does everybody understand when I'm talking about beams and suspension and stuff like that? Is this how you would build a locomotive, or do you have a different way of doing things? Maybe not. So one of the things that I've used as a reference when I've been building locos for a while is this book, Flexi Shafts. So it's got in things in it about suspension, beams, and spreading weight, making sure that all the wheels are in contact with the rails at the same time. Nice book. I imagine it's out of print now. It's 40 years old, so but still relevant. You know, it's the engineering principles that are involved that are still relevant. One of the things I was gonna, let's see if we can just, if I hold that there, can I adjust the,
That's better.
oh, that's pretty good, isn't it? Right. Okay. So I've done that sort of beam arrangement there. I haven't made it pretty and fancy. I've just used a bit of scrap etch off the chassis etch, and I put this beam across, which I'll solder onto these eventually when I finish disassembling it, reassembling it. That'll just keep them together, make sure that they don't slip off, because they could, you know, with great trauma, they could slip off the bearings, which are soldered into the horn blocks.
There's a question from Tim. Have you set the bearings from the outside or from the inside of the beam?
Right. Okay. That's a really good question, and it's about time I came clean about horn blocks, isn't it? So I don't know. This could be a big secret. I don't know anybody else that does this. But you know, it just seems a little bit of a logical solution for me when I sort of came across it. The reason I sort of came up with it was that I didn't have any other solution that jumped out to me for the first flexi shaft that I did. So to answer Tim's question, the bearings are put in from the outside. You could put them in either way, Tim. You could put them in either way. Putting them in from the inside would trap the bearing, but then you might have to pack the outside for the spacing, might you? I'm not sure. By gone, that's soon got stuck on there. There we go. Right. Okay. So there we go. My horn blocks look like that. Yeah. So all I've done, I mean, you've got the markings on the edge for where the horn block should be, which I've cut out with a saw and cleaned up. And then I've very simply put some H profile brass strip and soldered it to the chassis. And the piece I cut out of the chassis slides up and down in it. Now, I have used horn blocks from Slaters and others, and I probably will do again. But if it's not a big fancy loco that wants some extra detail, then this seems to me to be a very sensible and straightforward way of making the axle holders go up and down. And what I've done there is I've soldered the axles in from the outside so that on the inside they come through quite a way, but they obviously sit on the outside of the H section. But there's still enough meat in there for them to ride on the bearings. The bearings aren't going to be going round, so you're not going to get wear on those. And this is a tube which will get soldered onto at least one of these beams, which is around the brass rod there that goes from one frame to the other. And because I wanted to put the brass rod immediately between the axles, I've just put a little spacer in there on the chassis itself. You could easily have pivoted it from here somewhere. Will that just mean that you're going to get a different rocking action for this loco? It's not really an issue. So that the reason that I came up with that was for this loco, which is V2, and you can see it's got the same arrangement in the center, but the beams are a little bit different. And although the pivot for these two axles is in the center, you can see on the frame there, no, not with that set of wheels turned like that. You can see on the frame there that it is also in line with these two axles, but it's also sitting on a beam that spreads the weight to the front pony as well. Yeah. And this pivot is so far forward because of spreading the weight mostly onto these, but putting enough weight on the front pony so that the front pony will pull the loco into a curve. Yeah. But I came up with this solution for the horn blocks on this loco because the enterprising seller of the kit Very nice man he is. Sold me some ball races for the axles, which was great. And they're absolutely super. If you never put ball races in a loco or a wagon or something, you should try it because it really does make a difference. But once I got the ball races in the bearing holders, I found that they were too big to go in instead of home blocks. So having chopped out the chassis, I needed to find another solution. So that's when I came up with the H section to hold the pieces. So there you go.
Right, Anthony. Tim says thanks for the detailed explanation.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm quite happy to chat as long as you want to chat. Yeah. But I don't see. I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't put the bearings the other way around. They would hold the. Sorry, I'm looking at it and it's not on the camera, is it? They would hold the pivot beams in place, and they're just about long enough to go through, aren't they? But I think you would have to pack the axle on the outside.
You'd have to put a spacer in, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so. And probably not normally, but because you're using that extra, you've got that extra thickness there, haven't you? You know, if you're building a solid chassis, you wouldn't have the extra thickness of the beam and the gap between the beam and the frame and so on. So, good. Okay. Oops. So quite pleased with that. But surprised one of the bearings was, I mean, the holes in the coupling rods must have been the same because they're fitted on the witness axles out of the loco box. So, but there's if you can see that's a reason why you need to wash up regularly, isn't it? Like that's one, maybe 2 nights with flux on the steel. Yeah. Right. Good. And any other questions? Are we?
Just one thing, Anthony. Going back to the wagon turntables.
Yes, sir.
Is that slotted enough to be able to lay rail in or not?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Definitely. So the way it's laid out, Chris.
Yeah.
The gaps in the we're there now, aren't we? The gaps in the presentation, if you want to call it like that, you will put the rail in there.
Right, that's fine.
The width of the vertical pieces and these pieces, the width of those is the standard back to back.
Right.
So depending on your back to back, you might want to adjust it, but that's standard gill back to back.
Right.
Yeah. So I know the answer to the question because we also do 4mm one, and of course in 4mm you've got OO, you've got EM, you've got P4. I guess you've got S7 as well, haven't you? But nobody's asked us for an S7 one yet. So yeah, and for the 4mm guys, you know, the back to back does matter. So wrong way, right way. There we are. Is that okay? I think that's okay, isn't it? Right. So I'll put these back on here. Right. Okay. So just while I'm doing this, are there any? I mean, we've sort of covered the 2 topics that I wanted to cover this afternoon, and I've got a little bit of fabrication to do if somebody wants to watch me build something. But how about questions? Any other topics? Any other products? Coaches? Wagons?
Just out of interest, Chris, did you ever manage to come out with a device for holding bottles of liquid flux vertically so they don't spill all over the place?
What's that for? Eh?
I didn't, because it's the same answer really, Richard, that I started off this stuff and the local box and whatever else to satisfy my modeling needs, things that I knew I needed to help me. And it never really occurred to me that I needed anything like that. However, I will admit that over this last week or 10 days or so, getting these things ready and whatever, I have been very careful with the bottle of flux. We've got this new workshop environment we've done, and Karen does a bit of sewing up here as well, and the last thing we want is a bottle of flux on the floor. So watch this space. I don't know what do. Right. Okay. So here's a question that because I'm interested in knowing what other modelers do. So what fluxes do you use? Anybody? Everybody?
I tend to use a liquid one, but it's in a pump bottle, so literally I only pump up what is needed into a chamber at the top.
Right. I use Andy Duncan's glass bottles, which are a big size with a big open neck, which you can get, massive. It's like opening a bottle of beer. And I have on one notable occasion just nudged the bottle because it was on the edge of a mat, and suddenly found I had got not many millimeters, but enough to spread across the work surface.
Right. What about anybody else?
It's Tim here. I've had problems in the past where I've knocked a bottle of Andy Duncan's liquid flux over, or similar, and I then bought some rosin flux, which is like a paste, brown paste. I've found that actually better. It's slightly less corrosive if you get it in the wrong place. If you get it on your tools and things, it doesn't make everything go rusty. So I tend to favour that these days.
Right.
Maybe it is purely only Andy Duncan's flux that tends to get knocked over. Other people.
Shall we tell him?
Well, it's good for his profit margin.
Well, yes.
I have to say though, Hobbycraft do a nice little. It's a bit like you'd have on a desk to put your pencils in, but it's much bigger, round sections of sort of hard card or something, and I use that now on my desk, and it's handy for holding flux bottles and water bottles and IPA bottles and all kinds of things in that you just leave them all in there and dip your brush in, and they don't fall over.
No, that's not going to stay like that, because you will have, if you looked on the bits and pieces, if you know us from past, what I shall do is I shall put it back in the box and continue. This is a different one, obviously. Continue to adjust the camera.
That's a Blue Peter one, is it?
Yeah, this is one I made earlier. Yeah. So I shall continue to build a loco in the box, because I found it's a really useful extra set of handles sort of thing. extra set of hands to hold it in place while you're working on it and so on. Good. Okay. Reason why I asked, and you've got all sorts of different compounds going on there. I've always, for years and years, I've used a brush for applying cars red flux. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, use the red one because it's organic and you sort of worry about sort of where it goes a bit maybe. But also when I started using it, it doesn't say on it now, so maybe it's changed a little bit, but when I started using it, I'm sure it used to say if it gets inside something you can't wash, it doesn't matter. So that was one of the reasons I started using it. But it's maybe not so corrosive on brass and white metal and stuff, but it's certainly corrosive on steel. And for years I've applied it with like an artist paintbrush, and it's really been good for me to teach me the discipline of cleaning up afterwards, because if you leave it on an artist paintbrush, the ferrule's rusted overnight, it's gone. So it's been really good for my discipline in making sure I clean up every night and wash the brush and wash the model and stuff like that when you finish. But then over this last 10 days or so, I've just been like using like an offcut of wood. You know, I've been dipping it in and using it, and it's just as good. Well, I've found no deterioration in service anyway. So I've just been using a piece of wood and spreading it on with that.
Perhaps that's your next item of tool, is the piece of wood to use to dip into liquid flux.
Wow. Richard, I don't need to sell those because you get 25 in every kit that you buy from me. in the fret that goes round everything, you know.
Yeah,
that goes round everything. Yeah. Anybody suffer with 3-link couplings?
Oh,
just a second.
Yes, sir.
In here. I dashed out. I don't know whether you've mentioned this, but I actually dashed out to get my flux, which is that stuff.
All right. Yeah.
You get it to a plumber's merchant, and it's a cream. And I find that is better than almost any of the others. I use nothing else and haven't done for years.
Does it need a lot of cleaning up?
No. You're just putting a thin smear on onto the brass. And as I say, no problem.
Right.
I've never had any trouble with corrosion with it either. That's what I mean.
I didn't see that because I'm on a tablet. I couldn't see a picture. What's it called?
Is it power flux? Is it power something?
Power flux, yes.
Yeah, power flux. Yeah.
By Prize.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
is it one of your products, Chris?
No, I stick to the chocolate.
Does it corrode the brass if you leave it on overnight, or if you don't clean it off? No. Okay.
No.
I guess plumbers don't go around cleaning stuff off, do they? They just get on with the next job.
I must admit, I clean it, so I haven't left it on overnight, if you follow me. So I can't really confirm that it wouldn't in the long term corrode, but I've never had any problem with it, and it's absolutely superb stuff.
The reason why I asked about somebody had started this this R1 kit that I used for the demo earlier, and well, they'd only just started it really, and around the foot plate there and underneath, I mean, it's not very neat, but and even this hadn't been started, but it obviously been in contact with something. There was all green blue, horrible, mucky stuff attached to that, and you can see it's well. I can. Where's we changed the focus, didn't we? It was all eaten away. The brass on the inside. I mean, it's still coppery coloured. I don't know whether I have another go at cleaning it up or not, but so there are some nasty things out there, aren't there?
Yeah.
There are some nasty things out there. But this was the box it came in had a receipt in it from 1997. So how old's that? 25 years, isn't it? Do you know a set of Slater's wheels were £11 25 years ago? These driving wheels. You got to be careful buying second-hand ones of these, because there's a few bits of rust you can see on there. Not finished cleaning it off really, but on the outside of the packet looks fine. But the one that was next to the cardboard's obviously been damp at some time, you know. The one that was next to the cardboard's gone a bit rusty. So there we are. Yeah, what was I going to say? Oh yeah. Does anybody suffer with three-link couplings?
Yeah.
In what way?
Trying to hook coaches with 3-link couplings on together and onto a locomotive.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I let's see if we can. No, this is no good. This is not good, but it's the right shape. So, one of my friends who lives in Colchester is an outside layout, and it's all 3-link couplings, and one of the goods yards is sort of quite a way away to reach over to, and. You know, I failed to believe this was going to work to begin, but it just does, and I don't know. It's just magic. It's black magic almost. He has a series of these. Well, I have some as well now because they're really good, but not like this. This is the wire on this is too thin. It's too boingy. You want something a bit stiffer than this. So what you're doing on a 3-link coupling is. You're putting this underneath the wagon and lifting the middle link inside this loop. And as you pull it away from the wagon, it's like the last link that you want to hook onto the next hook, it lifts up to meet the hook. It's absolutely magic how it works. So there you go, a little tip for you.
Gracious me. So
the little bit at the end is for getting it off as well, of course. You see, it's too boingy, lot. Yeah, too boingy.
So what's the depth of that sort of dip in the U-bend?
Depth of a where's the millimeters? That side. It's there, lot. So it's 5 millimeters, isn't it?
5 millimeters.
Yeah.
Because I reckon hooking 3-link couplers together is a dark art.
It is until you get one of these. So I get a couple of. Again, look, I'm doing something really risky, like putting them wheels on and not knowing whether it's going to work or not. Right. Okay. So. Wrong way.
That's it. That's got it. Yeah.
Is that all right? Okay.
Yep.
So let's put these two apart. I'll just have a quick visual check that the thing is going to go onto that. Right. Okay. So if I go into, but it is boingy, so it's not necessarily going to work. Right. Okay. So lifted the middle link.
Yeah.
And oh, just put it over like that.
Gracious me.
Will it go the other way? Might go the other way. Oh, I've got it through the centre. Oh, too boingy. Yeah, it amazed me as well, Richard. Richard Chadbourne. He has some of these shaped things on like a 2-foot garden cane, and you think to yourself, well, you can't do that at arm's length like that. It works. Oh no, I can't do it.
Should have quit the first time.
I should. There you go. There you go. But that's too boingy. You need something that's going to give you a more firm hold. There you go. Right. Next problem.
And that works with the different diameters of 3 links, because the trouble is a number of them are, I wouldn't say they're uniform in width.
I haven't known it fail, Chris. I haven't known it fail. And it would also work. I'm pushing it now, aren't I? Really? I'm pushing it now. I've got an instanter on there. Can I connect it up to an instanter with an instanter one? I think the answer is yes. I'm sure I've done it.
You've been practicing, haven't you?
This is the practice, Richard. Oh, well, if it weren't boingy, it would do. I'm sure it would. Yeah. So it works on an instanter as well, which is I think this is a cast one, Chris. So
Yeah.
never mind. You get the idea.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Big heavy lump of a wagon. Yeah. Right.
Well, I think in actual fact we've overrun.
Have we?
Anthony.
Oh, well,
So,
we used to do.
So
as it, well, can I ask then? Can I ask them before we let this wonderful crowd go? What is their favourite tool? Their favourite jig? Anybody?
No one.
Don't be shy.
Yeah. Anybody got any?
If you're shy, I'll show you another kit. So, right, it's very similar to the last one, isn't it? So where's the? Oh, yeah, okay. So this is a M&M Models first class kits brake van, and we've just done an interior for it. You know, on the original kit there is sort of no floor. It's a bit sort of empty in the middle. So we just did a kit for it to fill in the gap. We already do the end stanchions for Malcolm. So you can see there the end pieces,
Right.
which you can see from outside.
Yeah.
But we do that, and we do a version for the connoisseur one as well. It's like that.
Right.
And that's fairly new, so people might not have seen that if they haven't been to shows. There you go. Some more football stuff.
Thank you.
Favorite tools?
That's very good for the etch brass brake vans.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Eric, it's very...
The representation on the end, on the inside end.
Yeah. There.
Yeah, there.
The vertical
Oh,
board.
sorry.
Yeah.
On the inside of the end. Yeah.
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 Yeah, the open end I think he's on about.
Yeah, because you can see it very easily, just looking into a brake van, that there's no boarding there.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing you've got to be a bit careful with this is, I can't remember whether I rolled the roof or not, because you can put the stove at one end or the other. You've got to make sure you assemble the inside with the right handedness on it, so the stove goes in this corner,
Right.
you know, as opposed to this corner, which you've just made not possible to match the chimney that comes out the top, of course.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Right.
Thank you, Anthony.
That's all right, Richard.
That was great. That was very informative. Thank you. Food for thought. And yes.
Well, just nice chat and sharing things. And
Yeah, indeed. On that note, gents, we'll close the meeting. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your participation. And I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you and bye-bye.